should quit chasing and look for something better. But the smile that she shows makes me a go-getter. I have been going as far as asking if I can look for something better. Later of my ear and hope she gets the picture. I'm shooting for her heart, got my finger on the trigger. She can be my fraud, and I can be her nigga, but
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. How are we doing for the Wednesday morning? Today is Wednesday, March the 28th, 2018. It is going to be a fantastic day, and my name is Samuel Adams, and I think that everything looks fairly decent, and it sounds pretty good. We have a new mic this morning on today's episode of Caffeinate, so I'm not exactly sure if everything is going to be functioning properly. It seems like my audio levels are a little bit low, so we'll turn that up a little bit, but overwhelmingly, everything looks pretty good, knock on wood. I think that we're all doing okay. We're all hanging in there. So we're going to be rolling with it. But if you are new to the show, my name is Samuel Adams. I record this show and also stream it live on twitch.tv/TheSamuelAdams every single weekday morning at 6 a.m. where we go over the hottest gaming news of the past 24 hours, and I'll let you guys know what you need to know about the world of video games and technology and things in general, entertainment. The show has been kind of changing lately. You know, I've been kind of changing around the way that I do end up doing it because it seems to me that the more information that I can squeeze into this little slot of time that I have, the better off you'll be. And also, as a podcast that's exported afterwards, it seems like it's the kind of thing that really does lend itself to throwing a lot of information in and allowing it to kind of get to everybody at one point. Although everything is still going to be completely and totally relevant, without a doubt. It is going to be a fantastic little show this morning, but this is going to be what we in the industry call a thick one. This is a big little news day for the world of video games and whatnot. But if you're watching later on YouTube, if you are listening to the podcast, I thank you very much. I hope you enjoy the show. And without further ado, let's go ahead and jump into it. I'm not sure why I'm inserting a whole bunch of uhs there. First off, coming to us from Polygon by Allegra Frank, we have Final Fantasy 15 director heading up a new Square Enix studio, introducing Luminous Productions. This is coming to us at a very interesting time for Square Enix, where it's doing very well. Square Enix has opened a brand new studio, and the director of Final Fantasy 15 is in charge of it. The company announced in a news release that its latest development team is called Luminous Productions, with Hajime Tabata named head of studio. Tokyo-based Luminous Productions will not only have Tabata at the helm, but the director is bringing many of the people who worked on Final Fantasy 15 along with him. Together, the Luminous Productions team will work on developing new AAA titles and bringing innovative game and other entertainment content to a global audience, according to Square Enix. Those projects have yet to be revealed. Luminous Productions is currently on a hiring spree based on its website. We spoke to Hajime Tabata at last year's Gamescom, where he told Polygon that he was interested in working on something entirely different for his follow-up to Final Fantasy 15, which launched in late 2016. And here's a quote: "The next project I want to do is completely new IP, he told us then. I think it's going to be a very large-scale project based on everything we have learned and developed for Final Fantasy 15. End quote. Meanwhile, the expanded Final Fantasy 15 Royale Edition just launched on PlayStation 4 and Xbox One, while the game also made its Windows PC debut, and we did cover that one in the drop a few weeks back. This is just a really basic, bare bones kind of news story here, because there isn't any real kind of concrete information as to what is being worked on over at Luminous Productions. What we know right now is that there is a brand new studio, and somebody that has a pretty good reputation in the industry is in fact leading it up, but at the same time, we don't really know exactly what that may or may not entail. It could be something big. It could be something not big. We're not really, entirely sure at this point. However, what is very clear is that big things are happening over at Square Enix's Luminous Productions. Obviously, it's not going to be Final Fantasy related, as we're starting to speculate what exactly is going on. The guy said that he completely and totally wanted to work on something different than Final Fantasy, taking himself away from that completely, and so it's kind of up in the air as to what is actually going to be discussed, what is actually going to be happening with this new project. It could end up being a brand new IP. It could be a really old classic IP that we're not even familiar with. Who knows what exactly is being worked on over here at Square Enix's Luminous Productions, but it's very interesting. It's something to keep an eye on, especially if you are a fan of what Square Enix does bring to the table, which I know a ton of people actually are. It's a big deal whenever it comes to something that Square Enix is making. People get very, very excited about it, and so in the same way, I am as well. I think that it's going to be a significant kind of game. I think that it's going to be a significant kind of studio, and it's definitely worth keeping an eye on if you are into that kind of gaming world. But that's pretty much the substance of that story. Moving along to a story from Motherboard. PC Master Race invades PUBG Mobile with dishonorable keyboards and mice. Playing a keyboard and mouse feels like cheating, and it's going to ruin the game. This is coming to us from Matthew Galt over there at, again, Motherboard, which is a subsidiary, I suppose is the best way to put it, of Vice. Let's see. Let's zoom in so my old man eyes can see what this says. Oh, yes, that is much better. Now it looks like a mobile layout brought onto the PC. I prefer playing PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds on my phone to playing it on my computer. The control scheme works well, and it feels better optimized on my phone than it does on my PC. That's arguable. The early rounds might be full of bots, but there's real players in there too, and it's fun to duel with them while we're both rapidly pounding on our phones' touchscreens. But some players have figured out how to use a mouse and keyboard to play PUBG Mobile, and playing a mobile shooter with a mouse is like playing in God mode. After watching videos on YouTube of players dominating mobile matches with the mouse, I had to try it myself. I spent my afternoon cheesing PUBG Mobile, and it was so easy it felt like cheating. That's because it is. It's totally cheating, and long term it's going to ruin the game. There's many ways a willing user can upgrade their mobile PUBG experience. Players have installed the game on Chromebooks, paired Bluetooth devices to their phones, and ran emulators on their PC to make the game run with a mouse and keyboard. After an afternoon spent cheesing Battlegrounds Mobile in various ways, I'm here to tell you it's easy to do and totally cheating. Don't do it. The first thing I did was use Chromecast to run my phone's audio and video on my 62-inch HD TV. I still controlled the game with my phone, but it was far easier to pinpoint distant targets with my TV serving as the monitor. I didn't win the game, but I landed in the top 5. Next, let me turn off this ad. I turned to one of the various Android emulators available online. In just a few minutes, I was playing PUBG Mobile with full mouse and keyboard support. It was grotesque. After 3 games, I landed 30 kills and 2 chicken dinners. For those that are not familiar or acclimated with PUBG, that means that he won twice in 3 games. That is not a customary kind of thing to see in any version of PUBG. My final confrontation was a pitched sniper battle where I and the other combatant took pot shots at each other from our sniper's nest. I assume, though I don't know, that the other player was also using a mouse and keyboard. He was literally the only other player I encountered that was any good. I had a blast playing PUBG Mobile with a mouse, and it's absolutely cheating. After my first game, I started to see other players as walking loot boxes. I wasn't afraid of any of them, and every encounter played out in one of few ways. Either they'd spot me first, take a pot shot and miss, giving me enough time to line up my shot and kill them, or I'd see them first and shoot them in the head. If I got into a firefight, I could easily bunny hop and fire, something that's almost impossible to do with the touch controls. Other gamers are having the same experience. I played 5 times on my rooted tablet with a mini USB powered up for a mouse and keyboard input. One player on Reddit said, won 5 games and realized that very soon, once the process for doing that is commonplace, that all mobile will be filled with people doing it. It's a controversy the Xbox One PUBG community is also going through. On the Microsoft console, it's easy to set up a mouse and keyboard for the console version of the game, a fact that has angered some in the Xbox One Battlegrounds community. Its subreddit is full of threads of users begging for developer Blue Hole Studio to do something about it. In the land of touchscreen controls, the player using a mouse and keyboard is king, and a competitive game where the player is the best controls is going to win. And policing these controls is all but impossible. It's hard to imagine a world where the best mobile players aren't using a mouse and keyboard, which is kind of effed up. PUBG Mobile is a blast, in part because everyone is using strange touchscreen controls. The gulf between those using a mouse and those using a touchscreen is huge, and it's hard to see what developer Tencent Games can do to fix it. The only thing they can do to fix it, and I will tell you this right now, is to, quite frankly, just, not allow people to use them. I'm not sure how you would do that, though. You can't really block an emulator. You can't really fix things like this. It just is one of those things that exists, and you kind of have to deal with it, which is very unfortunate because I understand this is literally, and quite literally, I mean, ruining the PUBG mobile experience. I haven't played as much as I wish that I could say that I have. When it comes down to it, I really, really love PUBG. I have since last July, and I kind of fell out of it, but over the course of the past few weeks on both the mobile version of the game and also on the PC version, I have been actually getting back into it. It is incredibly intuitive, I think. I think it's really improved. I'm not sure if intuitive was the right word to use there, but it's incredibly well optimized, and it has improved greatly since the last time that I played it. And on mobile, it runs very, very well. In fact, I would say that it runs better than the Fortnite game that is on mobile platforms right now. It actually is a better game, I think, whenever it comes to what is going on with mobile. But the fact that players are using mouse and keyboard up against people that are using touchscreens is very, very, very unfair. It's kind of like how you can do crossplay between Fortnite on mobile and Fortnite on PC. Just because you should doesn't mean that, or just because you could, rather, excuse me, doesn't mean that you should. It's not going to be a good experience for you. You are absolutely going to get stomped on, and in the same way, that's what we're seeing with PUBG, except now it's skewed the other way, where there are 5 mobile players for every 90 PC players, but now there are 5 PC players for every 90 mobile players. It's just one of those things where the skew and the ratio is so completely off that it really will have an impact on exactly how the game is going to be, playing out over the course of the next 6 months. And it's very important right now to get this next step right, to figure out how to deal with this kind of thing, because it is going to be a detrimental factor of the game going down the line. As PUBG continues to compete with Fortnite both on PC, on console, and on mobile, it needs to have some kind of at least leveling, where you don't have some kind of advantage on one game over the other. And right now, people would rather play Fortnite, in my experience, number 1, because it's more popular, number 2, because it's free to play everywhere, and number 3, because it simply isn't having problems like this, at least not to my knowledge. Now, I'm sure that it is possible to use mouse and keyboard in Fortnite as well. I'm sure that is not a difficult thing, but it doesn't seem to be covered in the media as much, and that's what really matters, is the media coverage. That's what will really get you in a pickle. And so, as we go forward, will this be patched? Will they patch out using Chromebooks on the mobile version of PUBG? Will they patch out using any kind of mouse and keyboard? I don't know that they can. I think that's more of a hardware thing than anything else, but we'll have to see how it goes. I suppose that we will probably deal with that in a couple of weeks whenever more and more people begin to complain about the fact that PUBG is now riddled with pretty much faux PC players. It will be quite an interesting couple of weeks. Moving along to another story from Destructoid's Chris Moyes. Over 1.1 million viewers tuned into a single Fortnite stream last night. Now, this is, of course, written yesterday, so that would be on the 26th is when this happened. Spanish language event, a record-shattering success. Online multiplayer Fortnite has once again smashed stream records, with a YouTube broadcast last night breaking through the 1 million viewers milestone. The stream, held by Spanish player El Rubius, saw 100 YouTubers gather to fight it out on the popular team shooter, with most of the participants similarly broadcasting the event on their own channel. At one point, El Rubius' original stream had a total of 1.1 million viewers in the audience, and that's not even counting those watching? This is incorrectly worded. It doesn't even count those watching the other participants' individual streams. That is insane, says Chris Moyes. Whether through quality, fashion, or otherwise, Epic Games' Fortnite really is something else right now. Only last week we reported that over 600,000 viewers tuning in to watch Twitch Tuning into Twitch to watch rapper Drake take on popular streamer Ninja. He didn't take him on, he played with him in a digital free-for-all, as well as looking into Ninja himself, who claims to be making in the region of $500,000 a month streaming the game online. You can check out the replay of El Rubius' Rumble to end all rumbles below. I probably won't. So, this is another one of those stories where it is mind-boggling how big this game is actually getting. 1 million concurrent viewers, 1.1 million concurrent viewers on a streaming platform. And on top of that, it's also significant because this is actually talking about something that was streamed on YouTube, which I find to be incredibly interesting. I think that is something that is definitely worth talking about here. Obviously, a couple of weeks back, we had Ninja streaming and playing with Drake and essentially getting over 600,000 concurrent viewers at one point, and that was a mind-boggling number that we thought could not be topped. And now, just a couple of weeks later, we have 1.1 million viewers tuning into a single Fortnite stream over on YouTube. And I think this speaks more so to the fact that streaming is the future. It's not Twitch that is the future. And I want to kind of elaborate on that point, and I'm probably going to make an episode of Decaffeinate, which is, or Decaf, as we like to call it, where I pretty much break down a more deep thought. I might make it into a YouTube video or something along those lines, so we'll see how that goes. But everybody's always saying that Twitch is the future. Twitch is going to be the next big thing. It's going to be the next big YouTube. It's going to become something that no one ever thought that it would become. And I can totally see that happening. You know, I can very well see Twitch growing to the point where it is just a Goliath of a platform that Amazon made an incredibly good call on very early on in its life. And that's more than likely how it's going to go. However, people write off things like YouTube Gaming. People write off things like Mixer. People write off things like Caffeinate and Facebook Live. There are so many platforms out there that are genuinely in the race to be quality experiences for both live streaming and also viewing live streams themselves. There are very viable options out there that are really good alternatives to what you have going on over here on Twitch. And YouTube Gaming is one of those that is very, very large and very, very, very popular, as we can see by 1.1 million viewers tuning into a single Fortnite stream. And speaking of YouTube, that rolls us right into our next topic, which is not present. Is it over here? Here we go. Yes. Beautiful. I was totally prepared for that. This is a story coming to us from IGN. Fortnite breaks a YouTube record. Another one, not just the one that we just talked about. Fortnite continues to smash it. This is by Shabana Arif over there at IGN. Might have mispronounced that. Sorry. Fortnite continues its reign when it comes to breaking records, having smashed YouTube's record for the most uploaded videos of a video game in a single month in the history of the platform. YouTube's Ryan Watt shared the news in a tweet that also mentioned the turnout for the huge Battle Royale event this week. Ryan Watt on Twitter at Fwiz says, "How big is Fortnite on YouTube? Fortnite holds the record for the most videos ever related to a video game uploaded in a single month ever." There was an extra ever in there. Yesterday, the Battle Royale tournament had over 42 million live views and set a record for the biggest single live gaming stream at 1.1 million concurrent. So 42 million views on that one live stream, 1.1 million concurrent at one time. God, that's insane. The event that brought 100 of the top Spanish-speaking Fortnite streamers together on the platform and drew in 42 million live views. It also set the record for the biggest single gaming live stream with 1.1 million, yada, yada, yada. We already covered all of that. What the fact of the matter here is that it is genuinely a viable option to be on YouTube still, and it's very clear that things are growing very, very steadily and very, very quickly over on all platforms, not just on Twitch. But in this news story, we do see that YouTube is doing something right by getting 1.1 million concurrent views on a single live stream, and on top of that, 42 million live views themselves. So with that, you know, I don't know what else you need to know. That's very impressive, you know. It's just one of those things where the more people watch, the more the game is going to grow. And people are certainly watching more, and more money is being poured into the development of the game. So I suppose it's just going to be a never-ending.
Look at all those chickens.
Wow, that was loud. It's going to be a very interesting couple of weeks to see what exactly happens with Fortnite. Man, that was a loud little notification. I apologize to audio listeners. If you want more of that, come by the stream. My heart is pounding. That was very, very loud. Oh my goodness. Moving along to some Destiny 2 news. Now, this is not something that I ever thought that I would be talking about here on the platform. I didn't think that Destiny 2 would actually be making a comeback. I thought that we would do it kind of in the same way that we did Battlefront 2, and we very well still could. where Battlefront 2 releases a ton of updates and then we never talk about it again. But this is coming to us from Game Rant, and it says Destiny 2 brings major changes to the sandbox. This is written by Patrick Kirk, again over there at Game Rant. Today is the launch of the quote-unquote Go Fast update in Destiny 2, and with it comes a slew of changes mostly to the sandbox. The update hopes to fix several complaints that the Destiny 2 community has had with the game since launch. For starters, Nightfall Strikes are getting a new unique rewards that players can earn through any form of the Nightfall activity. Drop rates for these rewards will increase based on the score the players players received during the activity. The Strike playlist is also receiving a minor tweak to ensure that all players will no longer play the same Strike back-to-back. Originally, the Heroic Strike playlist was also set to include modifiers with this update. However, the inclusion of modifiers was pushed back until the May update, when Bungie modified their update roadmap, which can be seen right here below, and also in the link if you are on YouTube itself. I would put the links on the podcast services, however, there is not enough space via Anchor. What's more is the player abilities received sizable changes across the board. Super regeneration rates have been increased, and players will see that their super comes back in 5 minutes as opposed to 6 minutes and 40 seconds. Mods that affect regen time for all abilities have been increased to a cap of 50% with 3 mods equipped. Movement speed has also been significantly increased, and will scale appropriately with the mobility strat. First of Havoc, Sentinel Shield, and Arc. Fist of Havoc. God, man, I don't know these terms, people. I don't play Destiny. I skipped this one like I skip on a game of hopscotch. I just didn't play this. Fist of Havoc, Sentinel Shield, and Arc Staff users will sprint by default when using their supers. Sprint speed during this time will be set at the fastest possible speed, requiring no additional perks. Titan changes are relatively limited. The lift abilities have been retuned to give more control and acceleration overall. The shoulder charge nerf, that limited distance has been undone, so players can use their charge abilities from mobility gain. Arc Staff hunters see plenty of buffs. For instance, there's increased speed for nearly all Arc Staff animations. I don't understand a word of what I'm saying. As well as increased to the AoE range of all attacks during the super. Much like Titans, I'm just going to skip the rest of this. There's a ton. Here's a big one. The Crucible also received some big changes, including the introduction of 6v6 Iron Banner and quitter penalties. That's a big one as well. Bungie developers stated they wanted to buff the weaker weapons with this update instead of nerfing the ones that are most popular and powerful. So essentially, there are a ton of changes coming to Destiny 2, and this story actually works in collaboration with the next story, which is also coming to us from Game Rant by West and Albert. Destiny 2, Bungie promises answers to random rolls and weapon slots. The March update for Destiny 2 is out now, which made adjustments to players' weapons, players' movement speed, ability to charge rates, and more. However, not in this latest update are two things fans keep talking about: random weapon rolls and the return of Destiny 1's primary special heavy weapon slots. But in their absence, Bungie says that those are near the top of the developer's priority list. On Reddit, Destiny 2 game director Chris Barrett, responded to users asking about random weapon rolls and random weapon slots. He said that Bungie is very aware of the feedback and that the studio will be talking about them soon. I promise I'll have definitive answers for you for your other two questions soon, but both the random rolls topic and weapon slots are extremely high on our priority list. We absolutely owe players answers to those. Bungie has been much more communicative lately, continuing to ask for feedback from players and trying to be more vocal about what is coming in the future. Fans may be disappointed that Barrett didn't give an actual time frame of when Bungie will be answering those particular concerns for fans, but at least he acknowledged that those are very much in the conversation for the developers. It's hard to say when or even if either of those features will make their way to Destiny 2, considering that the game was built around fixed weapon rolls and the new kinetic energy power weapon slots. It's also extremely unlikely that any of that would change in time for Destiny 2's second DLC coming in May, considering that those features are nowhere to be seen on the game's roadmap for the near future. There is a possibility that such a dramatic change could occur in the fall in a major expansion for Destiny 2, which is what I think is going to happen, which many fans are hoping will be the sequel's version of Destiny 1's The Taken King, as it made an incredibly positive changes for the original game. For now, fans will have to wait until Bungie is ready to finally address those major points of feedback. So, between these two stories, the point that I want to make is that there is actually a huge effort being made here by the guys over at Bungie to make this a genuinely good game again. I understand that there is frustration within the community. I understand that there are people out there that want to play this game, that would love to get in on it, but just they can't find the effort to invest in it because it simply hasn't proven itself worthy of the investment. The game itself looks great. The game itself runs well on PC. The game itself runs well on whatever platform you're playing on. But when it comes down to it, the game Destiny 2 is still very, very broken, and the experience that it brings to the table doesn't necessarily justify having to deal with unbalanced weapons, unbalanced gameplay, and overall slow mechanics. Now, this update that we got earlier in the week, the Go Fast update, does seem to improve a lot. I've been kind of keeping up with the Destiny community. Now, again, I don't play Destiny, but I have roots in the community where I've been watching it on Twitch a good bit for the past couple of years, since pretty much the original launch of Destiny 1. That's where I found Professor Broman, that's where I found Gathalion, that's where I found a lot of other smaller streamers as well. And also, I follow a ton of people just to kind of keep a pulse, monitor on what is actually happening within the community. But it seems like people are either disappointed there isn't more within this update, or perhaps they are trying to get back into it, and they are finding that it is easy to get back into. So, at least it's not completely and totally negative as the talk around Destiny 2 has been over the course of the past 6 months or so. I think that as time goes on and as more expansions are put out, this game could improve. I think that they need to really do the next expansion correctly. The first expansion that came out was not significant whatsoever. It didn't change much. It added some DLC, but it didn't really bring anything new to the table. And so that's what really needs to change. We need to see more substantial content. We need to see more content that is improving upon the core mechanics of the game rather than just adding a couple of new strikes. We need to see genuine substance brought back into the game and genuine changes made that are listening to player feedback, and that's what we seem to be getting here with the interactions going on via Reddit, with the interactions going on via Twitter. It seems like the company itself is very vocal and very audibly listening, I suppose is the best way to put it, to what the community is saying. So whenever you have some developer that is listening to those people that play its game, or their game, I suppose, because there's a team behind the developer, then that's when you have something that becomes a quality product. That's when you have something that people enjoy, and that's when you have success. Not whenever you're doing whatever is corporately, good looking, whatever seems to satisfy the paper requirements that you have for the game. Whenever you listen to the players that are playing your game, that's whenever you get good results. So, again, there is a development roadmap available via Destiny 2 online, as well as on Twitter and on gamerand.com/destiny/2/update/changes/114 if you want to check that out. But, of course, links will be down below if you're on YouTube. And you can check all of that good information out for yourself. But I am excited to see what happens with the answers to random rolls and weapon slots. I think that would be pretty sweet to see if that changes anything significant. But I would love to get this game to a point where I feel comfortable jumping back into it and seeing what exactly it is bringing to the table. Moving along, we're getting a sip of coffee. Man, that's solid. Everybody needs a coffee break every now and again. I've been talking for like 25 minutes. You people listening to the podcast, you know that whenever you're doing some kind of podcast thing, it can be, you get a little thirsty. Also, I need to buy a pop filter for this new mic. Oh, for those audio listeners, I did get a new mic. It's the RE320, coming from Electro Voice. Very good microphone, one that is essentially studio quality. Very excited. Man, that was good. All right, little coffee break is over. This next story is coming to us from Rolling Stone via Glixel, which is the video game destination over there on Rolling Stone. Apple announces new 9.7-inch iPad with Apple Pencil support that does, in fact, cost less for students. And that's why I'm talking about this, because I understand that there are students in my audience. I understand that my audience tends to be on the younger side of things. And so to let you guys know about an iPad that costs less for students is something that I felt was, appropriate. And on top of that, it's a genuinely pretty good device, I would say. This story, again, is coming to us from Glixel, and I don't know who it's coming from. There is no actual name. Oh, Blake Hester from Glixel. A new 9.7-inch iPad is available to order today and will support the Apple Pencil Apple announced on stage today during its Apple Education event. The new iPad will have two different price points. Two? Why is it TO? Man, Rolling Stone, what are you doing? We'll have 2 different price points for standard users, $329 USD for the 32 gig version with Wi-Fi, and $459 for the 32 gig Wi-Fi and cellular model. For students, though, this is where it gets interesting, the iPad will only run $299 USD, which is, regular standard currency here in the States. The tablet will be available in silver, space gray, and gold finish. The new 9.7-inch iPad will also offer Apple Pencil support, allowing users to be even more creative and productive. From sketching ideas and jotting down handwritten notes to marking up screenshots. Apple Pencil will be available as a separate purchase, costing $99 and $89 for students. The new 9.7-inch iPad takes everything people love about our most popular iPad and makes it even better for inspiring creativity and learning. Greg Joswiak, is that like Steve Wozniak's brother or something? Apple's Vice President of Product Marketing said in a press release, our most popular and affordable iPad now includes support for Apple Pencil, bringing the advanced capabilities of one of our most creative tools to even more users. This iPad also has the power of the A10 Fusion chip combined with the big, beautiful Retina. That's not normally what comes after Big Beautiful. Retina display, advanced cameras and sensors that enable incredible AR experiences simply not possible on other devices. The Apple Education event took place today in Chicago, Illinois, and that was actually yesterday on March the 27th. So, as somebody who owns an iPad Pro, I will say this. Unless you are really, 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 really into tablets, then I would 100% recommend not going with an iPad and getting something like a Dell XPS 13, like a MacBook, something that you can genuinely just type stuff on. Now, if you are the creative type, iPads are genuinely good. For me, I have one to pretty much essentially watch Twitch streams and also to do a little bit of online work, from time to time. The iPad Pro, the big one, the 12.9-inch one, has a great keyboard on it. I could genuinely type a paper on that thing, but at the same time, do I want to? No. So, with that being said, if you are super into watching videos, if you are super into drawing, if you think that this is going to be a device that you genuinely do end up using, then you can essentially get it for, I think, pretty much $30 off. It goes down from $329 to $299, so pretty much $30, and you can get a new iPad. And of course, back in the day whenever these things came out, I sound like an old man, but like back in my day, whenever the iPads was first coming out, there was about $499 for the base model. It was freaking expensive. And the device, as compared to what we have today, was a huge hunk of metal. Shit. It was bad. It was really, really bad. I've seen the original first-gen iPads. We have a second-gen iPad in the home. I have the new one that I upgraded to, but I had an iPad 4, and they were, oh god, dude, really, this is a bargain for what you're getting. And plus, it has the new A10 Fusion chip. It's got support for Apple Pencil, which I think is just a ploy to get you to buy one because it's ultimately useless. There are so many different little aspects of this, but ultimately, if you are a student and you are into buying a new iPad, then you can get one for $299, which is going to get the job done and then some. And I mean, it is a viable option. I think that it's a pretty solid tablet if you did want to go ahead and go in on that. So we'll see how that goes. I think they're going to be very hot sellers, and I think that we might end up getting one here in the household. Of course, the folks have an iPad, and my mother plays a ton of Candy Crush, like literally more than I have ever seen anyone play any kind of game. And so her device, obviously, is the iPad 2. It's getting some age on it. She'll look up recipes and videos, and it takes a long time for things to load because, of course, a couple of weeks back, we saw Apple was slowing down devices, but I digress. It takes a long time for stuff to load because I guess it's just bogged down with pictures and web history and obviously Apple actually changing how the device functions after a certain amount of time. I digress. We'll see how that goes, but we should be picking one up. If we do end up getting one, I might do an unboxing or something along those lines. I think that could be very interesting, so we'll see how that goes. But if you are into that and you are a student, you can get it for $30 off. If not, then you can get it for the regular price of an iPad at $329, which was already discounted a couple of months back at another event. And overwhelmingly, I think it's a pretty good price for what you're getting for your buck. The next story comes to us from metro.co.uk. Xbox Live gamers could be banned for using offensive language, is said by Game Central. Microsoft has made changes to their online code of conduct that threatens a crackdown on bad behavior, even in Skype and Microsoft Office. Back when Xbox Live first started, it was a very different place. There'd never been anything like it before because new Xbox consoles were bundled with a headset. Everyone was talking, and while the shock of a new of the new lasted, being relatively nice to each other. That changed over time as people got used to the service and how it could be used and abused, and as party chat and lack of bundled headsets reduced the number of times you even heard from a stranger. No matter how true it is in practice, the assumption nowadays is that to talk to strangers is to risk a barrage of swearing, bigotry, and all the worst excesses of the teenage mind, whether they actually are teenagers or not, although the worst offenders do often seem to be. This is the background of Microsoft's new services agreement, which could see you getting a ban for losing your subscription, or not just Xbox Live, but on Skype and even Word. On not just Xbox Live, but also Skype or even Word. The new agreement comes into effect on May 1st and will insist that you don't publicly display or use the services to share any inappropriate content or other material involving, for example, nudity, bestiality, pornography, offensive language, graphic violence, or criminal activity, end quote. The existing code of conduct from 2015 goes into a bit more detail about what is prohibited, but there is nothing very specific about what constitutes offensive language. What's new is that Microsoft is threatening to do if you break it. Is what Microsoft is threatening to do if you break any of their rules, as they state that, and I quote, "If you violate any of the obligations listed in Section 3A above or otherwise materially violate these terms, we may take action against you, including without limitation, stopping providing services or closing your Microsoft account immediately for good cause or blocking delivery of a communication like email, file sharing, or instant message to or from the services. We also reserve the right to remove or block your content from the services at any time if it is brought to our attention that it may violate applicable law or these terms. We're investigating alleged violations of these terms. When investigating alleged violations of these terms, Microsoft reserves the right to review your content in order to resolve the issue. However, we do not monitor the services and make no attempt to do so." Presumably, Microsoft is not going to waste their time going around blocking people for swearing on Xbox Live, but it is likely they'll use these new guidelines to crack down on hate speech and persistent harassment. These changes come at a time as Microsoft and a number of other game publishers have formed the Fair Play Alliance, which is also aimed at improving online behavior. There are 30 companies that are participating in that, encouraging fair play and healthy communities. We envision a world where games are free of harassment, discrimination, and abuse. Good luck, my boys. Good luck. And where players can express themselves through play, reads the mission statement on the Fair Play Alliance website. Whether this or Microsoft's new code of conduct will have any real effect remains to be seen, but the mere fact that companies are attempting to alter the online status quo is a significant change of approach. So essentially what Microsoft is doing here is a positive way to improve the overall reputation of their community and try and improve the overall reputation of Xbox Live by simply implementing new ideas that do take out the scum that do end up, harassing people, sending inappropriate messages, trying to, mess up people's games, etc., trying to be, in general, bad people. And so this is overwhelmingly a positive movement, I believe, in my book. I think that it's one of those this is a way to address the situation that is probably the best way to do it, and it needs to be addressed because when it comes down to it, whenever you do go online and play a game, especially depending on what kind of game you have, there is a solid chance you are going to be hearing some things that more than likely shouldn't be heard. You are going to be hearing a lot of obscenity, a lot of cussing, a lot of insults, specifically to your mother. A ton of different kinds of things are said out there in the online world. And so with Microsoft bringing in these new codes of conduct, trying to be better people and trying to crack down on, and I quote, nudity, bestiality, pornography, offensive language, and graphic violence or criminal activity, then that's obviously going to be a positive change. I can't imagine anybody saying that this is something negative. If you do, you might want to recheck your values. I don't know how you could say this is going to be a bad thing, but starting May 1st, you will be held to a higher, accountability level to see, when it comes to dealing with Xbox Live. So, it's something to watch out for if you tend to be a bad-mouthed individual, if you tend to throw around racial slurs, which you shouldn't do. You can't do that anymore. Also, if you are sending bestiality pics over Xbox Live, I would highly recommend not doing that anymore. Moving along to... Why do I have a G Fuel ad? The hell? Well, that's not what I wanted at all. That's not what I wanted at all. Yep, that's literally what it was. Oh, let me Google this story real quick. PS and I made a mistake. Fun fact of the day, PSP was 13 years old yesterday. Woohoo! That's what it pretty much was. That was the story. Next up, moving along to the next story, coming to us from Polygon. The World Video Game Hall of Fame 2018 nominees include Metroid, Half-Life, and Minecraft. 12 games are up for Hall of Fame status at the Strong National Museum of Play. This comes to us, again, from Polygon's Michael McWhorter, at Mike McWhorter over there on Twitter. This year's finalists for introduction into the World Video Game Hall of Fame, which is organized by the Strong National Museum of Play in Rochester, New York, have been announced. Finalists include the original Metroid, Half-Life, Tomb Raider, and Call of Duty. 12 games, including console, computer, and arcade titles, are up for consideration this year. Here's the full list of 2018 World Video Game Hall of Fame nominees. We have, and I quote, Asteroids, Call of Duty, Dance Dance Revolution, Final Fantasy VII, Half-Life, John Madden Football, King's Quest, Metroid, Minecraft, Miss Pac-Man, Space War, and Tomb Raider. Here's a quote from John Paul C. Dyson, director of the Strong's International Center for the History of Electronic Games. These 12 World Video Game Hall of Fame finalists span decades, gaming platforms, and countries of origin, but what they all have in common is their undeniable impact on the world of gaming and popular culture, says John Paul C. Dyson, again, the director of the International Center for History and Electronic Games, in a news release. Whether it's a true innovator or an original like Space War, a pop culture icon like Miss Pac-Man, or a game like Minecraft that is still played by millions around the world, they're among the most influential games of all time. Space War, created in 1962, is the oldest game on the list at the Hall of Fame nominees, while Minecraft, first released in 2009, is the youngest. The Strong's criteria for games that warrant Hall of Fame status include, according to its website, icon status, the game is widely recognized and remembered. Longevity, the game is more than a passing fad and has enjoyed popularity over time. Geographical reach, the game meets the above criteria across international boundaries. And influence, the game has exerted significant influence on the design and development of other games and on other forms of entertainment or on popular culture and society in general. A game may be inducted on the basis of the last criterion without necessarily having met all of the other three. Anyone can nominate a game for the introduction into the Hall of Fame, the Strong explains, and inductees are selected by an advisory committee composed of quote-unquote journalists, scholars, and other individuals familiar with the history of video games and their role in society. Last year's inductees were Donkey Kong, Halo Combat Evolved, Pokemon Red and Green, Street Fighter II. These finalists who didn't make it last year were Final Fantasy VII, Microsoft Windows Solitaire, Mortal Kombat, Myst, Portal, Resident Evil, Tomb Raider, and Wii Sports. The World Video Game Hall of Fame 2018 inductees will be announced on May the 3rd. Now, as to who I think should win, if we're going off of what the last year had, then they've got 1, 2, 3, I guess Red and Green Pokemon are pretty much the same exact game. So essentially 4. If I had to choose 4 off of this list, I would say that the most influential are certainly Call of Duty, number 1. I would say that, I would say Call of Duty. I would say probably Miss Pac-Man. Then I would say Minecraft. And then I would say Metroid. Those are the ones. I would say Call of Duty, Miss Pac-Man, Minecraft, and Metroid. Not necessarily in that order, but I know that all of those games have had influential impacts, very, very heavy impacts on the gaming industry and on popular culture overall. I mean, Metroid is the foundation for so many platformer games that we have in 2018. Minecraft is an education/entertainment phenomenon, especially for the younger kids. Miss Pac-Man built on the foundation that Pac-Man laid down and really did, raise up what the game was capable of, even in an arcade setting. And Call of Duty is freaking Call of Duty. It's one of the most popular games of all time. It still sells millions upon millions of copies, even though the games are kind of shitty now. It is amazing to see what exactly is happening. It's just one of those things where I just don't exactly know what else to say. It's just mind-boggling how fantastic it is. It is just great. Razm, what's happening, man? I hope you're doing very well. Welcome to the stream. I hope you are having a fantastic morning, my friend. But moving along to, that's actually all of the news stories that I have today. That is actually wrapping up this week's episode today's episode of Caffeinate. Sorry, I'm a little bit discombobulated. But if you have enjoyed this episode, which I hope that you have, then by all means, drop me a like down below if you are watching on YouTube. If you are listening to the podcast, be sure to rate it online and come back and watch live right here on twitch.tv/TheSamuelAdams every single weekday morning at 6 a.m. Whenever I grab a cup of coffee, wake up, kind of live my life and see what exactly is happening, because I really need to wake up and get things going in the morning. So what better way to do it than checking out the hottest video game news of the day? I think it's a fantastic way to do that, if I do say so myself. But of course, I'm going to go, do this podcast thing, and then we'll be back here in just a couple of minutes to record an episode of the gist of it today, which I'm not exactly sure what we're going to be talking about. I suppose I'll figure that out as I upload this podcast to Anchor.fm, where it is distributed, and also to export it to YouTube. But we'll see how all of that goes. Again, I hope you guys have enjoyed today's episode of Caffeinate. I will talk to you very, very soon, and peace.